Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Gopi Janlaba Lava Giridvadat Hari Jaya Gopi Janlaba Lava Giridvadat Gopi Janlaba Lava Giridvadat Hari Jaya Giridvadadha Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Banachari Yamunatira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Gopi Janna Ballabha Giridvadat Hari Jaya Giridvadat Hari Jaya Gopi Janna Ballabha Giridvadat Hari Gopi Janna Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Nandana Janaranjana Yamunatira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Gopi Janna Ballabha Giridvadat Hari Jaya Jaya Gopi Janna Ballabha Giridvadat Hari Jaya Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Banachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Shri Radhe, Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Shri Hare Bala, Hare Bala, Hare Bala, Nitya Gaura, Hare Bala, Hare Bala, Hare Bala, Hare Bala, Nitya Gaura, Nitya Gaura, Hare Bala, Hare Bala, Hare Bala, Nitya Gaura, Hare Bala, Hare Bala, Nitya Gaura, Hare Bala. Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Shri Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Govardhana ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 14, Text 30. Maitreya Saivam Samvidite Bhatra Manmaton Matitendriya Jagraha Vasu Brahmashe Vrishaliva Gatatrapa Maitreya Saivam Samvidite Bhatra Manmaton Matitendriya Jagraha Vasu Brahmashe Vrishaliva Gatatrapa. Someone else? Maitreya Vaishnavis? Uvacha. Vishaliva Gatatrapa. Maitreya Uvacha Saivam Samvidite Bhatra Manmaton Matitendriya Jagraha Vasu Brahmashe Vrishaliva Gatatrapa. Word for word. Maitreya Uvacha. Maitreya said, Sa, she, evam, thus, samvidite, in spite of being informed, Bhatra, by her husband, Manmata, by Cupid, Unmatita, being pressed, Indriya, senses, Jagraha, caught hold of, Vasha, clothing, Brahmarishe, of the great Brahmana sage, Vrishali, public prostitute, Eva, like, Gatatrapa, without shame. Translation. Maitreya said, Didi was thus informed by her husband, but she was pressed by Cupid for sexual satisfaction. She caught hold of the clothing of the great Brahmana sage, just like a shameless public prostitute. Purport. The difference between a married wife and a public prostitute is that one is restrained in sex life by the rules and regulations of the scriptures, whereas the other is unrestricted in sex life and is conducted solely by the strong sex urge. Although very enlightened, Kashyapa, the great sage, became a victim of his prostitute wife, such is the strong force of material nature, such is the strong force of material energy. Maitreya Uvacha Saivam Samvidite Batra Manmaton Matitendriya Jagraha Vasu Brahma Ashe Vrishaliva Gatatrapa. Maitreya said, Didi was thus informed by her husband, but she was pressed by Cupid for sexual satisfaction. She caught hold of the clothing of the great Brahmana sage, just like a shameless public prostitute. Of course, Didi, one of the wives of Kashyapa Muni, wasn't a public prostitute. She was a goddess. But in this particular instance, in the heat of the moment, she was acting like that. And here Prabhupada actually comments, such is the strong force of material energy. Such is the strong force of the material energy. So, of course, we've been reading through this particular chapter where, and Prabhupada mentions in the next purport that Kashyapa Muni was a great devotee of Lord Shiva, and he was a worshipper of Lord Shiva. And it appears that he was also he was an impersonalist, but a great rishi, a great sage. And so he specifically, now he was doing his evening meditation, and Didi approached him. And so he told his wife that this is not a good time for procreation. Of course, Didi, her sisters had children, Aditi, and so many of her sisters already had children, so she wanted children, so she approached her husband to have children. So of course that is natural, a husband and wife to have children, have family, and so that is very natural. But she approached him in a very inauspicious time. I think Vasushrestha was commenting on the twilight, the dusk. These are inauspicious times for these types of activities. This is now here he mentions, Kashyapa mentions to his wife that this is the time of when Lord Shiva moves, accompanied by all different Pisichas and Kechari and all sorts of Bhutas and so on and so forth. They move around. They move around at these particular times. Just like we have our Brahma Muhurta early in the morning, we have our Mangalarti. This is a very auspicious time. But there are other not so auspicious times. Just after, I think, Brahma Muhurta is Shiva Muhurta, isn't it, in the morning? So that is not such auspicious times. And in many cultures of the world, they know about subtle influences, subtle beings in Japanese culture, for example, in Chinese, in Indonesia, and many cultures in South America, where they understand a little bit about inauspicious and auspicious times, influences of malevolent types of beings that can cause a lot of disturbance. And so, generally, when some functions are to be performed, it is the auspicious time is chosen for these functions to be more successful. Of course, in our Krishna consciousness, everything can become auspicious simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And mantra tas santa tas chiddam desha kalaha vastuta. There's a very famous verse spoken by not Brihaspati, but Sukracharya, where Lord Vamanadev asked why he wasn't successful in his yajna, in the story of Lord Vamanadev and Bali Maharaj, and what happened. He was meant to perform a yajna that was meant to be auspicious, but it turned out for him anyway to be very inauspicious. But Sukracharya had realization, and he actually made that prayer, mantra tas tanta tas chiddam desha kalaha vastuta. He said like that wherever you are, then doesn't matter about the vastu or the desha, the kala, the time, the place. Everything becomes auspicious. Wherever your glories, mantra, wherever Yeah, even the mantras for the yagya can be wrong. The place is not so auspicious. The time is not auspicious. Where's that coming from? I thought it was a tip truck unloading a bunch of gravel or something. Okay. That's right. New governor. Sukracharya was responding to Lord Vamanadev, and Bali Maharaj lost everything. And the whole idea, Sukracharya was performing yagya so Bali Maharaj could prosper, but Lord Vamanadev thwarted the whole thing. Of course, Bali Maharaj ultimately reaped so much benefit in surrendering to Lord Vamanadev, but Sukracharya responded in that way. So Sukracharya is a great Brahmana, great sage, great rishi, although he was wrong in this particular instance. But still, at the end of it, he realized, and he made that statement, wherever you are, everything can be wrong. But wherever you are and your glories are chanted, everything becomes adjusted and becomes auspicious. So this is the statement of Sukracharya. So it is a fact that certainly by chanting Hare Krishna, engaging in devotional service, it doesn't really matter auspicious, inauspicious. It can be, everything turns to auspicious. But nevertheless, devotees like to pick more auspicious times. In inauspicious times, perhaps we need to chant more. Just like at the appearance, we just had Gopurnima, the appearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where there was an eclipse, and then everyone was in the Ganga and chanting, doing so many things to counteract the bad influence of the eclipse. So things can be done. So everything is always auspicious when we're chanting, but we understand as devotees that there are different times of even every day, that some times of the day are auspicious and other times of the day are inauspicious. And we're always, of course, engaged in devotional service, chanting Hare Krishna, so it becomes auspicious. But we realize that something at this particular time, or this day, or this week, or this month, or this period, I'm not an expert in astrology or anything like that. Banu Maharaj is coming next week. You can ask him more about these things. And so, so those certain periods are very inauspicious. So at those times, we continue our devotional service, perhaps understanding that this is an inauspicious period. We increase our chanting. We increase our devotional activities so that we're not perhaps even subtly influenced or even grossly influenced by these inauspicious periods. But as I said, in a lot of cultures, they understand about these things and they do perform different types of activities to counteract it. Now, if one is not engaged in Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, then we'll have to do a lot of rituals and counteractive measures to try to counteract these inauspicious periods. I was just giving a class, I think it was in Perth actually when I was there, that I was explaining about, we were telling the story of Devananda Pandit, who previously was a Bhaguri Muni. And Bhaguri Muni was a very, very learned Pandit, and he was the chief Pandit in the court of Nanda Maharaj in Krishna Leela. Later in Chaitanya Leela came back as Devananda Pandit, and I was telling the story. So Bhaguri Muni, that now Mother Yasoda, she had Krishna as her son, but she was worried about subtle influences from bhutas and things like that. So she had many different priests come there and perform different rituals and yagyas. Bhaguri Muni, it is stated, he would every day he would do some yagya for the protection of little Krishna, and he would chant mantras and chant the mantras. He would go to Krishna and chant these mantras on every limb of the Lord's body. On his feet, he would chant a particular mantra for the protection of Lord Krishna's lotus feet, and on his calves, on his thighs, on his arms, on his chest, on his head, everywhere. He was so learned a Pandit that he knew these particular mantras to chant at particular times of the day and which particular mantras to chant. And he would do that. Not that Lord Krishna needed any protection or anything like that. But Mother Yasoda, she was very concerned about the outside influence of especially Bhutas and Pretas and Pisichas and all these different types of Bhutas, actually. So here we find the same thing with Kapila, who was a worshipper of Lord Shiva, and he specifically mentioned Lord Shiva would be displeased. Now here he's doing maybe saying Gayatri. I don't know what type of meditation, at the sunset. Different times of the day we chant Gayatri, but it's mentioned that he was doing meditation in the evening, and this was an auspicious time to do that. But she approached him right at that time. Now it appears here that Diti, she's a demigoddess, the wife of Kashyapa, but she became so obsessed by having children that she became completely overwhelmed by that feeling, and that sex desire was very, very strong, such as the strong force of material energy, as Prabhupada says here, that she was, and quite often, in being under the material influence, all of us understand how we can be overwhelmed by our lower nature and our emotions and so on and so forth. We have spiritual emotions, but they're a little bit dormant now. They're not, our spiritual emotions need to be we need to be purified so our spiritual emotions become strong. Now we're very much affected by the lower the material emotions, and people are driven in that way. They just succumb to whatever emotion is the strongest. So we have to be careful about that, and we have to utilize our higher nature and higher intelligence to overcome these emotions that may or may not be very good for you, to just indulge in satisfying that particular emotion at that particular point in time. And sometimes they come up so strong, they're like a whirlwind. They just, all of a sudden, they come up just like a whirlwind comes up, and they just overwhelm everything, and the next moment they're gone again. So many times whirlwinds can come up. So emotions are very strong, lower nature emotions. There's higher nature emotions, spiritual. That we're undergoing our devotional service, and our spiritual emotions will become stronger and stronger. And of course, in the liberated stage, we'll cry for Krishna, and we'll have all symptoms in our love and affection for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That they're spiritual emotions. Emotions exist, but there's a higher level of emotions and there's lower level of emotions. Here we find, unfortunately, Didi succumbed. She was obsessed and got to the point where it just completely overtook her, even though her husband was engaged in his meditation at that time of the evening, and she just pressed on him. And even though he was explaining to her about Lord Shiva, now many verses describe Lord Shiva. Vasudharashrestha was speaking about Lord Shiva, a very amazing personality. And I was giving class, I think it was in Sydney Temple, and the particular section was about Lord Shiva. And I was describing that you read in different shastras, Brahma Samhita, and different shastras like that, about the position of Lord Shiva. He is practically the personality of God, or not exactly the personality. Originally, he is known as Sadashiva, and the description there in Brahma Samhita that he exists in the Vaikuntha originally as a four-armed white form of Lord Vishnu. And there he is known as Sadashiva. And his consort is an expansion of Lakshmi Devi. She is known as Rama Devi. So that Sadashiva in the Vaikuntha and that Rama Devi combined together, they come into this world as Shiva. And there's another Shiva that comes into the world, and he exists in Maheshtam. And I think we'll find in the TOVP, that planetarium, and also in the main dome area, there'll be the depiction of Devi Dham, Mahesh Dham, Hari Dham, and then Krishna Lok, all these different levels. So the Devi Dham means the material world, and they're represented by, of course, the wife of Lord Shiva. Now, there's a whole technical description given in Brahma Samhita how that original Sadashiva combines with the glance of the Mahavishnu and the glance is like an effulgence, and Lord Mahavishnu gives energy to the pradhana and so on. And then that Sadashiva combines, he's the halo or the dim reflection of that effulgence of the glance of Mahavishnu, and he is then he is known as Shambhu. So this is very much described in Brahma Samhita, how he comes, and he is also the cause, helps to be the cause of this material energy. And Ramadevi expands as, and she becomes Durga Devi. And so we have now Lord Shiva, that original Sadashiva, comes to every universe and exists beyond the vision of the material world. He lives beyond, and he lives in an abode called Maheshadam. There's some descriptions of this. It's actually all darkness until you get to the abode of Lord Shiva, where it's like an effulgence. And there are many who live there who are liberated souls on the platform of Lord Shiva, and they worship Lord Shiva. So that is Maheshadam. Now, from that Maheshadam, Lord Shiva expands again and comes into the world, and he appears from time to time. We read in this day of Brahma, he appeared as the son of Lord Brahma, although he is not the son of Lord Brahma, he is an eternal personality. And so from that Lord Shiva, then there are Rudra expansions. There are all sorts of explanations of the position of Lord Shiva. Rudra explanations, and I think Vasudharishta was mentioning, Prabhupada actually describes the different Rudra explanations in one purport in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. He says there are 11 main Rudra expansions, and then they're also manifest in the different elements, I think, that you described, in earth, in air, in water, and sometimes you feel the Rudra effect in earth, the tremors and the fires and so on and so forth. These are what's called Rudra effects. Rudra effects. So it's all kind of a little technical. I just thought I'd mention it because a lot of this chapter, Kashyapa, is talking about Lord Shiva, his very exalted personality. He's very kind to all, and it's especially mentioned as we read on that he is very kind to women. He is very, very kind to women. He has a soft spot for women, and a lot of the young girls worship Lord Shiva to get a good husband. So he's very, very kind to women, and they pray to him, and he gives protection. So later on, Aditi kind of realizes she made a mistake, and she's feeling very shameful that she pushed her husband in this way, and she talks to him about it, and thought that, well, if I can please Sati, who's the wife of Lord Shiva, she's my younger sister, and because he's very kind to women in general, and of course Sati's his wife, then maybe Lord Shiva, I think I've offended Lord Shiva, so maybe if I take Sati's help, then Lord Shiva will be compassionate. Of course, Kashyapa explains that unfortunately, because we conceived at a very inauspicious time, he says that your children will be very ghastly, will be very ghastly children. But because you're feeling remorseful and you are praying to Lord Shiva and to Sati, then your grandson will be a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he said that I can't really change the situation, what's happened, but your grandson will be a great devotee. So it is mentioned later on that Didi was a bit pacified by that. All right, well, these sons, of course, this is prelude to the appearance of Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha here we're reading here in this particular section. And as we go through, we'll read the appearance. Maybe by the time of the Sringa Chaturdasi, we'll get to as we read through here, or maybe not, I don't know. But so it's a very interesting story. And so here, of course, Prabhupada talks about the difference between a married wife and a prostitute. One is restrained. There are rules and regulations as far as living in the world. And of course, those, and another class I was giving, I think in Melbourne, it was about Narad Muni talking about civilized human society. The chapter on Narad Muni talks about civilized human society. So in civilized human society, there has to be some rules. Unfortunately, especially in this age, the people are very much prone to mode of passion, mode of ignorance types of activities. Whereas you just can't, even if you're peaceful yourself, you're not causing trouble yourself to anyone, yet someone's going to come along and cause you trouble because of the effect of the mode of ignorance and the mode of passion. So life in the world, especially in Kali Yuga, cannot be at all very peaceful, and because it's not peaceful, can't be very happy or ultimately very happy. What can be really happy is spiritual life. So very much this Krishna conscious movement is teaching about how to engage in nice Krishna consciousness and spiritual activities that will bring about a lasting peacefulness, that will bring about eternal happiness, and so on and so forth. But so far as we're affected by the world, we need rules and regulations. Now there are mundane rules. Every country of the world, every society, there are rules. In this country, you have to drive on the left-hand side of the road. You can't drive on the. If you go to America, you're going to drive on the right-hand side. So you can go over there to America, which one time I did. Unfortunately, we were renting a car, and the driver got tired, so I took over. And I remember coming out of New Brindaban, and we were all talking, and I was instinctively driving on the left-hand side. So we're talking away, and all of a sudden I see this car coming at us, and its lights are flashing. This guy, after a while, I think the passenger was leaning out, waving his arm. So, and then I realized, whoa, I'm on the wrong side of the road over here. You have to get over there. So you have to abide by the rules, or it can be disastrous consequences. And so those who are from America or Europe or something like that, they have to adjust to the laws in this country, and so on and so forth. So we have the material laws that everyone is obliged to follow, and then of course over and above that there are actually laws that are given by higher authorities from the Shastra, great rishis and sages, from the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. So it behooves all of us to try to find out what these are, and what is best for us, what is best for society. So if one wants to have nice children, here it is mentioned, Lord Shiva is very kind to the bhutas and the pretas, and those who are unrestricted, those who are in a mode of ignorance, those who indulge in sex life in a very inauspicious time. He takes advantage of that, and he places, because the ghosts don't have physical bodies, he gives them an opportunity to go into the womb of the women who indulge in these very inauspicious times. So civilized, you want to conceive, you want to have nice children, in an auspicious time, and so on and so forth. This is what's recommended. Now Kashyapa, on the other hand, he was very learned, but because she was pushing on him, and also he felt obliged that she didn't have children, so he felt very sympathetic to her, but he knew this was not a very good time. Just wait a little while longer, and then this inauspicious time will pass, then we can conceive. But she was just so overwhelmed with that urge and that emotion and that urge, she couldn't even wait. And so he obliged her right then and there. He knew it wasn't auspicious, but as Prabhupada says, again I say it, such is the strong force of the material energy, that in the heat of the moment, we're capable of all sorts of things if we're not very, very careful. So, whether it's this, whether it's anger, or whether it's greed, or so many, emotions can overwhelm us in so many ways, and especially in the mode of ignorance. Anger is very, very strong. Mode of passion also, anger can come up very strongly, even though you read all the time the friends were drinking together, and then all of a sudden there was an argument, and in great anger, one of the friends killed the other friend. He picked up a rod or something like that and banged him over the head, and the friend was killed in a moment of anger. So these emotions can become so strong. So therefore, therefore it is recommended, here it is recommended, and earlier on it was mentioned about following rules and regulations, especially the system of Varna and Ashram. All the samskaras, the purificatory type of activities are already automatically there in Varna and Ashram. So this is like, and Narad Muni, as we're giving a class in Melbourne, he was stressing on this point. Civilized human society means following Varnashrama, especially those who are conditioned have to follow Varnashrama. And there will be general principles for all. There will be specific principles for the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, the Sudras, and the ashrams also. So one should try to know these things and act accordingly. Of course, in our Krishna conscious movement, we have our particular services and so on and so forth, activities, Vaishnav yagyas and Vaishnav homas and Vaishnav ceremonies and so on and so forth. So we're engaging in these things. Of course, the main activity will be, as we all know, is chanting Hare Krishna. And even in the yagya, we do I remember one time, Prabhupada, there was the yagya, initiation yagya, and when you have the yagya sala, you're supposed to have, traditionally you have in one corner someone chanting the Samaveda, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, each corner there's supposed to be a Brahmana chanting while the yagya is going on. And one time in Melbourne, Prabhupada asked the devotees, one corner Bhagavad Gita, other corner Srimad Bhagavatam, another corner Nectar Devotion, another corner Ishopanishad. So he considered that these were the essence of the Vedas, and so have this reading going on, and more importantly, of course, chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So this is the main activity. We can do all these other activities also to enhance everything, but the primary activity will always be the chanting and the Sankirtan movement. So thank you very much for listening to the class. I'll finish here, even if anyone wants to ask a question. I'll just read this again. Maitreya Uvacha Saivam Samvidite Batra Manmaton Matithendriya Jagraha Vaso Brahmeshe Vrishaliva Gatatrapa. Maitreya said, Didi was thus informed by her husband, but she was pressed by Cupid for sexual satisfaction. She caught hold of the clothing of the great Brahmana sage, just like a shameless public prostitute. Any questions or comments? Yes. Oh, this is going out.
Srila Prabhupada's use of the term prostitute here maybe it doesn't quite match the current conception of prostitution, where you find most often that men and women mostly, but men too, engage in this work out of desire for money, not desire for sex. It's a profession. And is there some subtle difference here? Where, and of course, we do have in society, we do have men and women who are promiscuous and overwhelmed with sexual desire and go everywhere. So is there a kind of, do you think this is a case of definitions being little
I mean,
older definitions compared to more modern definitions?
Well, I mean, he defines it in some way. He says that, and the difference, he says, is that one is restrained in sex life by the rules and regulations of the scripture, whereas the other is unrestricted. Yeah, I mean, I see your point. It could be according to the Vedic standard. The Vedic standard, Prabhupada's giving a definition according to the Vedic standard. Even in, he says in the married life there will be rules and regulations, and someone who is not following those rules and regulations, they're acting like a public prostitute. And actually, I noted that in the word for word, Vrishali, the public prostitute, Eva, like a public prostitute. So it's not that he's proper to saying she was acting like one in this particular moment, in this particular instance. So the definition is given on understanding from the higher principle of Vedic, Varnashram, and so on and so forth. As far as, of course, in those times also there were professions like that in prostitution.
Yeah, that was my second question.
Yeah. Even in those times, that they were I don't think Prabhupada's not talking about that. Well, he kind of is talking about it, but it's kind of he's mixing it in with what is the Vedic standard, and of course a public prostitute is one who does it as a profession. But a more general kind of definition is that one who is unrestrained. There's different levels of definition, I think. Is that all right?
Yeah. So I think that was the point I was thinking about, was that here's the use of a term, and I think in general, when we read Srila Prabhupada's words, we have to put them into the context of that and say, okay, this term is being used not necessarily as a to designate all situations of that term, because it can mean different things in different situations.
Exactly. Yeah.
So in this situation, he's given a definition that it's unrestrained, without rules, and shameless. Also, the other element there is
right,
without shame.
Okay.
I wanted to just make a comment though, because I was reminded of the dangers of driving on the wrong side of the road. As I recall, it was in Mauritius when Srila Prabhupada was in the accident.
Oh, yeah.
There, it was the person who ran in was driving on the wrong side of the road, was a European or someone from...
Mauritius is on the left, is it?
I think so, that they drive on the left. And this person was from Germany. And just, okay, we're having fun on the road. And
well, I tell you one thing, you wouldn't want to do it in India if you're from Europe.
Yes, you're big trouble.
You wouldn't last 1 second.
Anyway, this is...
I think Vasu had
let's follow the rules.
Vasu Shrestha's got a question. Comment.
Sometimes when you come from India and you're driving on the road here, that you sort of take advantage and you go in front of someone and they're waving the fist at you and you go, well, what's the problem? You got lots of room because you just come from India and you're used to missing people by that much.
There's 3 lanes.
Yeah, so my question is about the Shiva Bhaktas. They here, from what I see, they worship Lord Shiva with the ultimate desire that they achieve the destination of Kailash, because they believe Lord Shiva's in Kailash. So would you be able to sort of explain where the situation where Kailash fits into this sort of
Kailash,
picture?
Now, Kailash, there's this, Lord Shiva, as I mentioned, in the Vaikuntha, at Sadashiva, and in Maheshnam, which is beyond the world, he expands and comes into the world. And he has different abodes, different places, just like Lord Brahma. I was giving a class, I think, one time here. He has different abodes. He has different places on top of Mount Meru. There's a place he gives darshan. He has his Brahmaloka. He has different places. So Lord Shiva also, just when you can go to Kedarnath, for example, when you go to India. Kedarnath is a temple, but the Kailash area is described. This is a whole area there. And it's you can't. The Kailash, Lord Shiva actually lives there, because in the section of the Bhagavatam I was reading in Sydney, there is a description along the whole chapter. There is a description of the Kailash on earth, the abode of Lord Shiva on earth in the Himalayas. How it's so beautiful a place, very lakes and trees and beautiful animals, and Parvati's there, Lord Shiva's there. It's a very, very beautiful place. It can't be seen with the material eyes. It's like another dimension. So those who go to Kedarnath is just one temple dedicated to Lord Shiva, and just in one particular area. But the Kailash, as described in the Bhagavatam there, is a greater area, and beautiful description is given there. So Lord Shiva also lives there. He expands himself and simultaneously Mahesh Dham, Sadashiva, and Kailash, and also whether he expands and travels around with the Bhutas as described here, that at particular times, of these particular times, that he has a pathway and the Bhutas follow behind. He's very kind to the Bhutas. And now the different types of bhaktas and devotees of Lord Shiva, some are Vaishnavas and some are worshipping him to become one with him, or they're like impersonalists. So there's different types of individuals who see Lord Shiva in different ways. But that Kailash, good question, because in that chapter when I was staying in Sydney, that whole chapter was about the description of the Kailash on this planet, in the area of the Himalayas. You can go to there, but you can't see with these ordinary eyes. There's another dimension. All right, so thank you very much. Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo.
That's the abode and personal drive.
It's a bit cute these days, even though we have
Light, I'll enter the light, become one with the light.
Yeah, Krishna. Well, since a year and a half ago when I met you, then you came to Cairns and I saw you there. So I've just been in Cairns for a year and a half. And then on Gorpanim, I just felt inspired to contact Ajita and said to him, I'd like to visit again. He just said, well, when do you want to come? And I wrote in the text, well, how about right now? And he said, great, Nandu will have the room ready. I was kind of joking. But Krishna made it. So I just started the next day. I drove. Yeah. So I drove in 2.5 days, and I've been here maybe 2 weeks. So maybe I'll stay longer this time. So Jita's given me a nice seva, the same seva I had before. And it's nice because I can do my bhajan here better.